We made decisions in the budget last year to increase taxes by £40 billion. I have absolutely no intention.
Today, Chancellor Rachel Reeves set about bankrupting the UK.
Who's saying that she's an economist?
Well, I'm an economist. I studied economics. I got a master's in economics from the London School of Economics, and I worked as an economist at the Bank of England.
That's one. Let's have Reeves on her CV.
Everything changed in just 60 seconds. Cameras rolled, microphones buzzed, and then boom. Angela Rayner, once Starmer's closest ally, stood before a stunned Parliament and dropped a political bombshell that no one saw coming. At that very moment, news broke that King Charles had privately signed off on something that shook the foundations of democracy itself, an emergency power handover to Nigel Farage, triggering an unprecedented election. Within minutes, chaos erupted. Phones buzzed with panicked messages. A total of 43 Labour MPs stormed out live on air. And behind closed doors, damning evidence was quietly being passed to the palace. Evidence so explosive, it led to the King demanding Keir Starmer's immediate arrest. But that was only the beginning. As cameras caught Rachel Reeves fleeing Downing Street, hiding behind dark-tinted windows, the public would soon discover the real reason why. An inheritance tax cover-up, audio recordings, billionaire plots, and a terrifying glimpse into who really controls the laws in Britain. This is not just a scandal, this is a collapse, and you're about to hear every single detail they never wanted you to know. The storm didn't start with shouting. It started with silence. For weeks, insiders whispered about growing tension between Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner, but no one expected betrayal. In front of a packed house, with cameras rolling, Rayner stepped forward and read from a sealed document. The room went cold. Her voice was sharp, controlled. She accused Starmer of hiding critical information from the public, the party, and even the King. "We have been lied to," she said, "not just by opponents, but by our own leader." At first, many thought it was just political theatre. But then she pulled out a USB drive, containing confidential files linking Starmer's inner circle to lobbying giants with foreign interests and billions in offshore funding. Gasps filled the chamber. Starmer tried to speak. She shut him down. "You have sold this country to the highest bidder," she said. That same hour, something even more astonishing happened behind closed palace doors. According to verified insider leaks, King Charles had already received copies of the same documents days earlier. And instead of going public, he consulted with senior advisors and, shockingly, Nigel Farage. Why? Because buried in those files were signed drafts of emergency legal changes that would give Starmer and his billionaire backers unprecedented influence over parliamentary voting procedures, silencing opposition, removing lords, and rewriting major tax laws with almost no scrutiny. When King Charles saw that, he did something no modern monarch has done in centuries. He invoked a rare constitutional protocol to allow the Crown to support a non-governmental interim election, essentially giving Farage the platform to launch a King-endorsed national emergency vote. And that's when Westminster cracked wide open. At exactly 2:16 p.m, news alerts flooded every screen. King Charles supports Farage in snap vote. Parliament was still in session. Starmer froze. Rayner turned to the Speaker and simply said, "There is your answer." One by one, Labour MPs stood up and walked out, some angrily tearing off their party pins, others whispering, "It's over." Outside, press vans collided, trying to capture the moment. Inside, Starmer was left with just a handful of loyalists, some stunned, others visibly shaken. Never in modern British history had the Labour Party collapsed so quickly, so publicly, and so dramatically. But this wasn't the end. It was just the first domino to fall. Because as chaos gripped Parliament, another story was breaking just a few blocks away. And it involved Rachel Reeves, a luxury black car, and a desperate attempt to outrun the truth. As the chaos unfolded inside Westminster, all eyes suddenly turned to a sleek black Jaguar speeding out of Downing Street. Inside was Chancellor Rachel Reeves, her face hidden behind dark glasses, flanked by aides on phones, whispering furiously. At first glance, it looked like a routine escape from a political firestorm. But what the public didn't know yet was that Reeves wasn't fleeing a political argument. She was running from an investigation. Hours earlier, a secret recording had been delivered to The Guardian and Buckingham Palace. A recording where Reeves allegedly discusses manipulating the upcoming inheritance tax policy, not for the people, but to protect the fortunes of several billionaire donors with ties to offshore accounts. "We'll dress it as reform," her voice allegedly said on the tape. "No one will question it until it's already through." The leak was devastating, but it wasn't just the tape. Accompanying documents showed that Reeves may have intentionally concealed multi-million-pound inheritances linked to foreign shell companies, some tied to art, property, and even royalty. A full paper trail connected Reeves's private financial advisors to elite banking institutions in the Cayman Islands, with one startling detail. Several of these accounts appeared just weeks before major Labour tax announcements. The implications were nuclear. One senior civil servant, speaking anonymously, told reporters this wasn't just unethical, it may have been illegal. Even before official inquiries could be launched, the palace had already handed the documents over to the Supreme Court, triggering an emergency financial review and the possibility of Reeves's personal assets being frozen. The media erupted. "Has Rachel Reeves been bought?" asked one headline. Another read, "Tax reformer or tax fraudster?" But the real twist came when one brave whistleblower, an aide from the Treasury itself, came forward with an explosive claim. Reeves allegedly met in secret with two foreign business figures to coordinate these tax tweaks in exchange for political campaign support. And it didn't stop there. Audio logs from internal Treasury calls revealed panicked voices trying to cover their tracks, redact emails, and delay scheduled audits. These weren't accidents, they were calculated moves. As police units were reportedly seen entering buildings linked to Labour's financial wing, Starmer's party began to look less like a government in waiting and more like a house of cards. But the most damning detail of all, Reeves was scheduled to give a press briefing the next morning on ethical governance. That briefing was cancelled. Her team gave no explanation. And the vehicle that drove her out of Downing Street was tracked heading not toward Parliament, but toward a private estate in Surrey known to host off-the-record crisis meetings. Public confidence collapsed. Protesters gathered outside Labour HQ. And inside the palace, King Charles was allegedly briefed again, this time on whether Reeves herself could face criminal charges before the election even took place. In just a matter of hours, a respected chancellor had become the face of scandal, betrayal, and elite corruption. And while she remained hidden, back in Westminster, a second wave of leaks would push the crisis into even darker territory, one that would expose the secret alliances built behind Starmer's rise to power. As the sun set over a fractured Westminster, a new tide of revelations surged forward. This time, not about tax evasion or secret recordings, but something deeper, darker, and far more dangerous. While Starmer huddled with his dwindling circle of advisors, and Rachel Reeves remained out of public sight, the next scandal exploded across the airwaves like a thunderclap. It wasn't just that Labour's leadership had failed, it was that it had been compromised. At the centre of this storm was a massive digital leak, released by a whistleblower known only by the alias Red Scepter. The files, sent to multiple journalists, peer-reviewed analysts, and even members of the Royal Guard, detailed a sprawling network of foreign lobbyists, shadow donors, and covert influence campaigns operating within the Labour Party, and all of it traced directly back to Starmer's own office. The documents, running over 6,000 pages, included encrypted email chains, bank transfers, and phone call transcripts. One particular memo, marked confidential, eyes only, referenced a private meeting between Starmer, two representatives from a multinational investment syndicate based in Qatar, and a political intermediary with direct ties to a foreign intelligence agency. The subject line? Privatising NHS assets, political strategy and international leverage. Though Starmer's team denied the meeting ever took place, the memo included exact timestamps, security clearance logs, and even CCTV stills showing the three men entering a private suite at a London hotel under false names. But the revelations didn't stop there. A secondary file dump outlined how Starmer's campaign had allegedly received over £19 million in undeclared financial support packages from overseas financial structures. These weren't traditional donations. These were layered through fake consulting firms, real estate transactions, and shell corporations registered in Cyprus, the British Virgin Islands, and even Hong Kong. Some were disguised as media consultancy deals, others as pension restructures, but all of them funneled directly into accounts tied to Labour's then election machine. In one shocking instance, an obscure entity known as Unity Strategies Limited was paid £4.7 million for voter engagement services. But upon investigation, the company had no employees, no website, and was registered at an abandoned property in Leeds. Even more disturbing was the discovery that Unity Strategies shared IP address activity with a Chinese data firm known for election interference operations across Asia and Africa. Security agencies flagged it immediately, and what followed was a top-secret briefing between MI5, the royal family, and key members of the Supreme Court. And this is where the story took a truly chilling turn. It was revealed that key members of Starmer's shadow cabinet, including the former Home Secretary-in-Waiting and the digital transformation lead, had been warned multiple times about the influence of these foreign entities. Yet not only did they ignore the warnings, they allegedly suppressed them. Emails between senior staff show attempts to silence whistleblowers, scrub internal reports, and mislead oversight committees. One brave analyst from GCHQ, who chose to remain anonymous, was quoted in a confidential security memo. "The level of infiltration is not accidental. This is coordinated influence warfare from within our own political system." As public outrage intensified, protesters surrounded Labour headquarters chanting, "Who bought Starmer?" and "This is treason." Meanwhile, MPs who had once stood beside Starmer in photo ops now scrambled to distance themselves, issuing rushed statements and deleting social media posts. The press descended into a frenzy, with every major news outlet dedicating 24-hour coverage to the unravelling scandal. Panel shows turned into shouting matches. Editorials declared democracy under attack. But the weight of the revelations truly came crashing down when a second whistleblower stepped forward, this time from inside Labour's digital campaign division. Using secure encrypted testimony, the whistleblower revealed that during the last leadership race, Starmer's campaign was granted access to private voter data from over 14 million citizens, data that was never legally authorised and may have been sourced from a foreign surveillance company based in Tel Aviv. The implications were seismic. Not only was Starmer being accused of financial corruption and foreign collusion, now he faced allegations of illegally harvesting data to manipulate voting behaviour. This sent shockwaves through the Election Commission, who immediately suspended Labour's digital operations pending a full criminal investigation. Legal experts warned that if proven, these charges could not only void the upcoming election, but also lead to charges of electoral fraud, cybercrime, and national security breaches. What's worse, multiple senior Labour advisers began cooperating with investigators, cutting deals, surrendering devices, and turning over confidential memos to the Crown Prosecution Service. One aide allegedly confessed that a Russian consultant had helped craft Starmer's recent immigration policy speech, word for word. Behind the scenes, the royal family convened an emergency meeting at Windsor Castle. According to insiders, the King was briefed personally by the Director General of MI5 and the head of the Constitutional Crisis Committee. Advisers debated whether to invoke the royal prerogative to pause all major parliamentary proceedings, effectively freezing the legislative powers of the Labour front bench. Though the palace has made no official comment, royal sources leaked one line from the meeting. "The fabric of state is compromised. We must act." Meanwhile, Starmer attempted damage control, staging a televised speech in which he blamed a coordinated foreign disinformation campaign for the leaks. But viewers noted he avoided answering any direct questions. He didn't address the Qatar meetings, he didn't mention the fake consulting firms, and he certainly didn't explain the damning emails with subject lines like "private deal," "tax concessions," in exchange for media silence. In fact, during that speech, Starmer appeared visibly shaken, and halfway through, his press secretary had to step in to cut the live feed. Within hours, Starmer resign and Labour leaks trended globally, reaching over 200 million people in just a single day. Even Labour's traditional allies in the press turned on him. The Guardian ran a brutal editorial. "We believed in him, he sold us out." Meanwhile, the Times headline read simply, "Compromised." Calls for his arrest grew louder. A petition demanding his resignation and prosecution reached over 2 million signatures in less than 48 hours. And as police opened official investigations into Reeves, Starmer, and over a dozen shadow cabinet members, it became clear this wasn't just a leadership crisis. It was a constitutional collapse. The next domino to fall would be Parliament itself, because leaked footage, never meant to be seen, was about to go viral. Footage showing what really happened behind closed doors when Starmer's inner circle tried one last time to cling to power. What those cameras captured would shock the world. It happened at 2:41 a.m, well past the hour when Parliament should have been dark and silent. But on that night, the lights inside Committee Room 12 were still burning. And the footage, secretly captured on a hidden phone by a junior parliamentary aide, revealed the final act in this political tragedy. The video was shaky, but the voices were unmistakable. Keir Starmer, his tie loosened, eyes sunken with exhaustion, sat flanked by Rachel Reeves and two senior aides. Around them stood a handful of Labour MPs who hadn't yet resigned. Their goal? A last-ditch vote to suppress further leak inquiries and maintain party integrity, as Starmer put it. But what the video captured next wasn't strategy, it was panic. Reeves begged them to delay the press release. One MP warned, "The King already knows, we're done." And then Starmer leaned forward and whispered something that silenced the room. "If this comes out, we all go to prison." That line, that one sentence, it was all the public needed. By sunrise, the footage was everywhere. Across TikTok, Twitter, Telegram, and the 6 a.m. broadcast cycle, it played non-stop. News anchors stared in stunned silence. Radio hosts wept on air. One outlet called it the most damning political recording in modern British history, and just like that, the last wall protecting Starmer crumbled. Arrest warrants were reportedly prepared for multiple shadow cabinet members. MI5 increased its security monitoring around Parliament. The King's Emergency Council met for the third time in 4 days. And as of this moment, the Prime Minister's position is untenable. Labour's entire front bench has either resigned, been suspended, or is under formal investigation. In the streets, the public response was deafening. Marches, mass resignations from local Labour chapters, and calls for immediate general elections under independent oversight. No one trusts the system anymore. And who can blame them? A party that promised hope, progress and truth was now revealed to be compromised by foreign money, corrupt alliances and shameless power grabs. As for Starmer, he hasn't been seen since the early hours of that morning. Some say he's fled the country. Others believe he's negotiating immunity behind closed doors. What we do know is this: his era is over. Rachel Reeves is now facing asset seizure and formal charges. The courts have begun reviewing the legitimacy of Labour's digital campaign data. And King Charles, once cautious and quiet, has now become the unexpected centre of a constitutional reset. As the monarchy, the courts and the people begin the slow process of cleaning up this political wreckage, one thing is certain: this wasn't just a scandal, it was an exposure, a revelation. The masks are off and the game is over. The question now is simple: who will lead Britain out of this darkness? And more importantly, can the nation ever trust again? Share your thoughts in the comment section and subscribe our channel for more UK news. Thank you.